Manabuddhiyahumka Chityani Naham Nacha Shrotru Jyuve Nacha Gnanudeshe Nacha Bhumi Bhomo Natejo Navayu Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Nacha Prana Sanko Nabui Panchubayu Navasaptu Dhatu Nava Pancho Kosha Navakpani Padam Nachapastu Vayu Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Namin Vishuragom Namin Logo Vadanaiva Menaiva Mapsayavada Nadarmo Nacharto Nakamo Namoksho Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Na punyang na papang na sukhang na dukhang na mantra na tirtha na veda na jagya ang bhojanang naibojang na bhakta Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Namitu Nasanka Namijati Veda Pita Noiva Menaiva Mata Najan Nabandhu Namitrang Guru Naiva Shishwa Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Aham Nirvikāso নিরাকারূপং বিদ্যুৎয চ সর্বত্র সর্বৈন্দ্রিয়াণানাম ন চ সংকটং নৈব মুক্তিনামেয় চিদানন্দরূপঃ শিবোহং শিবোহং চিদানন্দরূপঃ শিবোহং শিবোহং চিদানন্দরূপঃ শিবোহং
To now do the Vedic chanting. Please participate in. Om me manosi pratishtita manaha me vachi pratishtita.
Om
Abhi me yedhi Vedasyamani saha Shrutang me ma prahasiha Anena ditena ahoratran sangdadami Ritang Vadishwami Satyang Vadishwami
Ridam Vedishami, Satyam Vedishami,
Amabatu Sadvakaramabatu
Tatmavatu Tadbhadam Avatu
Avatu Mam Avatu Bhaktaram Avatu Bhaktaram
Avatu Mam Avatu Bhaktaram Avatu Bhaktaram
Shanti Shanti Shanti
Shanti Shanti Shanti
Yantu mama angani bhakranah chakshuhu
Apayantu Pranashu
Rotramataha balam indriyani cha sarmani Sarvyang Brahma Upanishadam
Sarvam Brahmo Upanishadam
Aham Brahma Nirakuriyat Mama Brahma Nirakaro
Maham Brahma Nirakuriyat Mama Brahma Nirakarut
Akarnamastu Nirakarnamyastu
Nirakarastu Nirakaram Meyastu
Namaste Mohi Santu Te Mohi Santu
Dharmate Mohi Santu Te Mohi Santu
Shanti Shanti Shanti
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti
Om Purnamadaha Purnamidang Purnat Purnamudachyate
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate
Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Avasishvate
Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamiva Vashishyate
Shanti Shanti Shanti
Om
Om
Shanti
Shanti Shanti
Shanti
Shanti
Sahano Avatu Sahano Bhunaktu
Om Shanavatu Shanabhunaktu
Aviryam Karvavahai
Tatsam Viryam Karvavahai
Tejasvi no adhitamastu ma vidvishavahai
Tejasvino Adhikamastu Mahavidvishavai
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti
Om
Om Shanti
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 Shang Mitra Shang Varuna Shang no Bhavati Aryo Maha
Om Shamnamitraha Shambaruna Shamnavati Adimaha
Shang no Indra Brihaspati Shang no Vishnu Rukramaha
Shamno Indriha Brihashpati Shamno Vishnu Gurukrama
Mahabrahmane Namah
Namo Brahmane Namo Devayo
Pamiva Pratyakshang Brahmasi
Tameva Pratyashyam Brahmayashti
Pratyakshang Brahma Padishwami
Tameva Pratyashyam Brahma Vadishyami
Ritang Vadishwami Satyang Vadishwami
Ritam Vadishyami Satyam Vadishyami
Tatmamavatu Tadvakaramavatu
Tatmam Avatu Tadvaktaram Avatu
Avatu Mam Avatu Bhaktaram
Avatu mam avatu vaktaram.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Om
Om
Shanti
Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Om Bhadrang Karne Bhishram Deva.
Om Bhadram Karni Sharam Deva.
Bhadrang Pasema Shaviyayotra.
Bhadram Bhima Shaviyatraha.
Tirayangvai Tustvang Shatanovihi.
Shatanuvi.
Devahi Tanga Yatayu.
Vashi Madhavi Yatayu.
Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Om
Om
Shanti
Shanti Shanti Shanti.
We're starting the discussion for the day. Today we are going to use mostly English as a medium of communication. However, I'll mention from time to time some of the synoptic descriptions in Bengali as well. Today we are going to discuss. Today's session is 253rd session in the digital mode, and it's today's date is 19th January 2025. It's a Sunday. I'm now talking from Delhi, from a hotel called Lalit. It's on the 21st floor of Lalit that I'm connected to all. Today's topic is God and God particle. This is Brahmah and Brahma or Brahma Kana. It's a very interesting topic and very pertinent to us for our collective understanding in any context of spirituality anywhere in the world. What does it mean, this, God particle? There is a name given to a particle as God particle in 2012 after a group of scientists were recognized by the Nobel Committee as Nobel laureate because of their contributions of proving certain theories. Now I'm going to discuss how does it connect and where are the connections and how does it vary also, where are the deviations. This is a team, Professor Higgs and his team, who did the experimentation at from European Research Center, CERN, CERN. And the research center is symbolizing the most powerful fundamental research so far in the world. And they've done the experimentation based on they did start with for the one basis, but then finally it culminated into somewhat different and got the results on the basis of the different foundations. So they began with a theory called unified field theory. Unified field theory was coined by Albert Einstein, and last more than 20 years of his last life, meaning the most important phase of his matured scientific life, Albert Einstein had spent and focused on a theory called unified field theory. Unified field theory. Now, the meaning is it's unified, meaning it's got a combination of various types of forces within it, and the combinations of the forces are of varied types. Albert Einstein had thought that all the forces that are there available in the world, and the all the forces must be having some kind of single origin. Otherwise, it cannot exist and it cannot persist. So that was his perception, and based on that perception, he started moving forward. Now, at his point of time, when he had started in the early part of the previous century, mostly in 30s, the rigorous experimentation, 40s also, during the World War, Second World War, and also after it had ended, it continued so vigorously. And then there were other groups who took it over and then who had continued, following that. The other groups which took it over in the positive spirit of the term are a group of scientists starting from Enrico Fermi, Feynman, Rutherford's, the laboratories, and of course those who are there in Manhattan Project also, they were also involved in that. Manhattan Project, I guess most of us are aware of the Manhattan Project having a very, very, black identity, but then later on it converted into a very strong positive identity. Black identity is it had actually devoted very secretly the development of the destructive weapon called atom bomb, based on the postulates and theories which physicists had identified, particularly Albert Einstein had a very strong contribution in that, and of course others. And so the fission energy, meaning when you fragment a particle, when you break it open to different components, then apart from the material components, there are certain energy which comes out of it. Now, at that point of time, the energy was in the focus, and those scientists who were prior to the Manhattan Project, they had an objective, including Albert Einstein, to get this energy out of it and use it for, human gains, for human welfare. But actually, the fate was, different, and he had to lament after the war. So, it led to the creation of a destructive weapon in the form of atomic bomb. The spine, but it had proved one thing that, the split of particles into its components may emit massive energy. And if it is in a position to emit massive energy, then the energy must have had its presence prior to the, breaking down or the fission of this particle. That means a matter which is apparently looks like, kind of neutral, kind of, non-behaving, kind of non-corrosive, kind of, all good in its face value. It contains huge energy, and it depends on the quality of material. For example, the energy content of uranium-238 and let's say plutonium and others, who are there in the periodic table around 235, 234, 236. Nah, they don't have that much of energy as 238, U-238, uranium. The best quality of uranium does have. So, you see, the energy content within a matter is what was in the focus. Einstein had thought about four different kinds of forces. One is the kind of force which is the electromagnetic force. They are very visible, and everybody knows that electromagnetic is a force. And the magnetism, and magnets attract the magnetic materials. And whenever there is a magnetic or electromagnetic field present somewhere, there occurs certain amount of ionization, and from there you get diode, triodes created, the light materials which emit light, create light, focus light. These were having some connection with that. So, it relate to certain, things, certain instruments, certain tools in the hand of human being, which gave a shape, new shape to the civilization. And the civilization took a urban turn because of that. Meaning, you get electricity house after house, and then you get electricity on the roads, everywhere. You get, bulbs, you get, other materials which are actually glowing and giving light, giving energy, giving heat, and then all these things are coming. So when the fundamentals of that is there is a, emission, the emission of certain part of the particle, like, let's say the most elementary which people do study in the schools, electron, proton, neutron. Now, if if you give a heat to that, you'll find the elements may break. The moment it breaks, there is a, layering of the matter inside. The nucleus is I'm mentioning the elementary form. Nucleus is having some kind of heavy thing like, proton, neutron, and boundaries are having a very light, thin material called electron. But then electron is powerful in a sense, like it carries the charges and it electrifies. So, emission of electron is the emission of light. Like, tube light, you get, one part of this, emitting electron, and electrons, filling in that, and the gas becomes ionized inside. The moment it gets ionized, it offers, energy, and the energy glows and you get light. So electromagnetic is a very strong force. It's a very significant and strong force in the world. For human living, in it, electromagnetic force is a very strong force. Then Einstein thought about the when it comes to the nuclear, meaning when it comes to the center of the matter. At the center of the matter, there are heavy items, there are light items, as I've already mentioned just now. Heavy items are the items where meaning proton, neutron, etc. are there, and we can describe that in various forms, like, the nucleus of ferrous, nucleus of uranium, nucleus of plutonium, and nucleus of hydrogen. These are all varying, meaning when the matter changes its character and quality, the nucleus also changes its character and quality. But one thing is common. That's what I'm coming to mention. So when it comes to the center of that, there are some heavier components, proton, neutron, they are there in the center, and they are actually friends to each other, and they, are sticking to each other, and then in a random form, they are changing their position every second, every micro, nano, every, nanosecond, meaning maybe 10 to the minus 18, 10 to the minus 20, like this duration of second, they change their positions. So, so they're rotating. They're actually in the form of a rotation. And on the outermost and outer layers, the electrons are there. Number of outer layers are making the material. For example, carbon C4 and then U238. You'll find that the layers are so many different. And layers have got a formula which, Niels Bohr, when he came up with the atomic model, structure of the atomic model in the atomic theory, he had mentioned that. I'm not getting into the technicalities of that for, the interest of communicating it to and for our own purpose. But the fundamental is this. So there is a strong nuclear force. But then on the other side, there is a weak nuclear force. Einstein said that yes, within the nucleus, there are weak materials like, electron. It is kind of evaporating, kind of going out, it kind of rushing out, running out. It may have a jeopardy, and then the moment you give the slight energy, the energy gets it emitted. Huh? And then later on, the scientists discovered that yes, proton has got an fundamentals, the positron and the proton material. Positron is the charge carrying thing, positive. Electron is a charge carrying thing, negative. Now, when it comes to positron, positron is a positive material, positive charge, and electron is a negative charge. Now, positron can be taken out of the matter. Now, the moment you take out the positron from a radioactive material are those materials which have got the emitting layers, and they've got the layers from where the energy gets emitted easily than others. The radioactive materials would emit the positron. Now, the moment positron is emitted, positron would, there is a bombardment of positron into anything. Say, for example, there is a fly. Let's say, fly is there, and you want to see the, position of the fly, the position of cells within the body of the fly. How do you do? So you catch the fly in a particular container and then apply positron showers into that. It's like, having your bath in bathroom with the showers from the top, or, many various sides. So you have shower of water there and you get drenched in water. Similarly, when the positron is emitted, the positron actually penetrates inside and it passes through the cells. It's got a penetrative capacity because it's having energy. That much of energy electron doesn't have. So when you have let's say, a machine which can emit just the electrons, the machine would emit the electrons like cyclotron machine, which actually breaks down to material and breaks down to particle and breaks down to the nucleus and breaks the nucleus. And then you find the electron is getting emitted. And when the electron is getting emitted, you calculate the position of the cell. A cancer patient, for example, you have to detect whether in the body any abnormal cell exists or not. How do you understand abnormality? It is the angular disposition of the cell. Say, for example, when it heats, that you find that angular disposition is, I'll mention that, the positively rotated or negatively rotated, it depends. It's a technicality, but, the simple idea of this is when it, charges with that or passes through that, through the cells would exhibit this angular disposition. The moment it exhibits that, you identify whether they're in the right position or in the wrong position. Then when you find there are black patches in that and it's in the wrong position, so you predict that yes, there are abnormality among such and such cells or cells in those organs, and you can apply the same thing in the human body, and that's what is now so profusely being applied in the world. Like positron emission therapy. Positron emission, is the method. PET scan, when you do, is a method when positron is emitted and positron passes through. But the point is, positron is not transient; is a powerful. So when it passes through the body, it remains kind of it gives a kind of layering in the body, and some kind of disorganized cells are disorganized, some weak cells are disorganized, and it takes time to settle down. So the positron is that which is emitting. So here it is coming out of the strong nuclear force. Now, the weak nuclear force is the electron emission, which is done by the previous machine, like, cyclotron machine. Cyclotron machine does it. You can also depict, but then that's a very feeble one. The images that you get, the images are not that kind of, even when you are applying that in the, the industrial context, you cannot get that much of energy emitted out of it when you are doing the weak nuclear force. And then, these electromagnetic force, strong nuclear force, weak nuclear force. I thought that no, apart from this, there is a force called gravity. And gravity is something which never ends. And on the gravity, there are a lot of experimentations, particularly in India. The Kolar gold mine experimentation is the most remarkable experimentation until today, where you get the gravity when you move towards the center of the earth. How does the gravity cycle changes, and what are the cycles, and how do you penetrate into that? And there you find what you find the gravion, like a particle, and in the form of a wave, which takes you down to that. Now, how do you understand that these are actually having some impact in the environment, in the living organs, in the living organisms, and the entire cosmic system? How does it affect? It affects. It affects very strongly and sometimes feeble. As I've said, strong forces, one is a weak nuclear force, and the others are all strong. Gravity is also, the impact of gravity is weak, but the sustenance of gravity is the strongest. Electromagnetic has got a life, with the life can end in a short period, in a longer period. The strong nuclear force has got a life. It survives through the material content of that, through the formula of E is equal to mc square, where Einstein had discovered that it is the m, or mass of the particle, and the c square is the square of velocity of light. So you get a bundle of energy which is equivalent to the equivalent of that energy is there in the form of a mass, and the mass is there, which is a composite thing of the body. And you find that when it comes to the gravity, gravity is again, how does it impact? Anything having a mass will have some gravity. Like, when Sir Isaac Newton saw about the apple falling on the, on the ground, apple, plucked from the tree, it falls down to the ground, and it falls down to the ground. Why? Because apple had an intent to fall. Yes, you can explain that way from a poetic point of view, but from a scientific point of view, the explanation is that the gravity is pulling it down. So gravity pulls down everything, meaning if you have to overcome the pull of the gravity, then you need to have an escape velocity. The escape velocity, that's what the projectiles do have. If any, if you can create a spacecraft which has got a escape velocity above the pulling power of the gravity, then it goes out, and it goes out to for eternity. For example, you cannot detect it back, you cannot bring it back, meaning it goes to the stream of eternity, where where does it stay, how does it stay? It stays, it doesn't die, but it stays there as a stellar object. And the stellar object is a dead material, is a living material. It's at the same time all, at the same time both, meaning apparently from our angle of view, it is it may be perceived as a dead material, but actually in the actual fine terms, actual terms, it is a living material. So you see, the world of materials are there, world of thoughts are trying to connect the world of materials. When Albert Einstein wanted to prove this, unified field theory, he couldn't prove it. More than 20 years' time, he thoroughly, totally devoted to that. Little bit of other works, but then mainly devoted to that, but he had failed. And he lamented, saying that the most important thing that I wanted to do in my life, I could not do that. I could not accomplish that. So he could not accomplish that. So what are the things? It was carried down by the next gen scientist. Higgs was one of those. But when Higgs came into this field, when the CERN machine tried to prove that, it found that yes, there is a fundamentalism, but the fundamental is a non-matter material. So how do we understand this non-matter material? Again, I'm coming back to the fundamentals of science, wherein the particles are having three different characters. In the middle, there is a category of particle called hadrons, Hadrons. Hadrons are a category of particle which at one side it has got a particle with a mass, at the other side it's got a particle who do not have any mass. A particle with mass, particle without mass, but having a spin value. What is the spin value? Meaning that the particle rotates across the center in a particular manner. When the rotation is in a in a whole number, it's got a meaning. When the rotation in a fragmented number, it's got a different meaning. But then hadrons are what? So when the rotation has got a complete, is a square rotation, and the rotation is complete, that means what? It doesn't have that much of weight. It's a weightless. Rotation is a fragment. Fragmented. So it has to be measured. So you need to have. One category is a boson category. The third category is a fermion category. The boson category is the category of materials or the matter which is a non-matter. Fermions are a category of matter which is a hard matter. Hadrons are the categories who are flexible. From matter to a non-matter, non-matter to a matter. Then de Broglie came into the picture and he said that there is an uncertainty in this entire cosmic system. I don't know who has created this cosmic system, but the cosmic system is full of uncertainty. He said, what is this uncertainty? The uncertainty is time, space, and located. If you want to have a location, if you want to locate some particle somewhere, you can access through the time axis and can find out at this particular moment where were those bundle of, positrons or electrons or neutrons or protons combination or those particles. So you can access via the time scale. But the moment you are accessing via the time scale, you cannot get the mass of that at that point of time. However, you can access via the mass scale. Enrico Fermi came forward and said the entire cosmic system has got a entropy. He got the idea of entropy from the previous entropy, thoughts of entropy, and then clarified it further. Now, entropy does represent what? It represents the total content of energy in the cosmic system. Now, it is the total content of energy which then he wanted to mention that it should change because energy is decaying. The cosmic structures are changing. The solar system is changing. There are numerous other solar systems who are all changing. So how does it remain the same? It cannot. So then he started calculating and then found, no, it's changing, but finally I'm getting the same answer. So, then finally they sat together and de Broglie had said del X del T constant, meaning when the change in space and change in time are there, both the changes multiplied, you remain a constant. So somewhere some constant is there, they started finding. Einstein started finding that, oh yes, when I'm finding that, the electromagnetic, the electrons are getting out, I'm getting the strong nuclear force. The strong nuclear force, the strong materials are having the energy, and if I can split that, that's where was the danger. He started identifying the unified field theory, and he got into a game of thing, which was actually a kind of boon in the hand of those who are there in the Manhattan. Scientists try not to mention the three, leading scientists who were there in the Manhattan because human beings have, always cursed them. But then these three had, strong contributions in other areas of scientific thought. For the same reason, I'm also not getting into their names, but I'm just mentioning the Manhattan First Project. The Manhattan First Project got, developed two atom bombs. Both were dropped on the from the air on the heads of the Japanese during the end of, Second World War. Not during the end. That's how Second World War got, came to an end. The from Hiroshima and Nagasaki disaster. And Einstein had lamented before a historian. Is mentioned that the largest blunder that I've done in my life is to, create a pathway, is to show a pathway that the matter can be splitted and split matter through the fission. The matter can emit energy instantaneously and that can be bundled together and kept preserved for a while. And again, when it's ignited, it gets into our use energy. And that's how the atom bomb was created. Manhattan, actually, those people, they created that how. So, you see, from the nuclear, you get a disastrous thing available. Now this nuclear, energy is being used in electricity generation. That's good. Even the nuclear fuel, nuclear is being used as a fuel, but it's very sensitive. It can have radioactivity. And therefore, people are using plasma science to, get into that. So that's like another branch of science. Well, then Albert Einstein came to this position that yes, three forces could be there, but then gravity, how can you add to that? And where is this weak force actually getting identified? Professor Higgs then started identifying what was the foundation behind Einstein's thought. And they found, yes, there were mathematical norms and mathematical, descriptions, and wonderful. And if we follow this, we get something. So they started following that, and those mathematical things were the, development, thoughts, and creations of a person from Kolkata in India, Satyendranath Bose, later on respected as saying Acharya Satyendranath Bose. Albert Einstein himself considered him so strong and a good friend of him, and respected him so much that when he came to know that the University of Calcutta did not even give, Satyendranath Bose and Meghnad Shah the status of, a professor, he had to write to the university saying that what have you done? Such a, miraculous, genius, you have put them to a lower level. You put them to the highest level of education, the highest professorial level. So they were done. Now the point is, the the Bosch factor came into the particle physics now. What is the Bosch factor? A series of particles are now named, and this name started using in the scientific theory by Roger Penrose, David Bohm, and others, Stephen Hawking included, and then Higgs, they could find it out. And they found out that light, for example, photon is a particle, but photon doesn't have any mass. Photon is flying, 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 like like flies fly in the sky, like birds fly in the sky. But the birds have got mass; they fall down. But there is a particular bird of whom there is a mentioning by Sri Ramakrishna in his gospel. It is mentioned Homapaki. Homapaki, he has quoted the Vedic sources. Homapaki, yes, the name is different, but then yes, such kind of bus are there, is a bus of consciousness. And the bus of consciousness is what? It's flying, flying, flying high. And then sometimes it gives birth to the eggs of that bus, out of the content, material content, and the weight of it falls down. The mass is there, therefore it has to come down to the ground. Gravity is pulling it down, and then before it reaches the ground, it again takes the shape of a life, and it has got the wings. It flies up like this. It's an example. It's a crude example, but then a good example. So the example shows that there are items which are derived from the material, but not in the same form of the material. So they've got a unique spin. They complete the round, and the fermions, they don't complete the round, like 1.5, 3.5, 5.5, 7.5. There are a lot of other spins, like spin. How does it matter when it comes to the difficult mathematical model of that? You'll find that it's there, and this any problem, anyone? It's there, and you find that the material content of this is again having the both the sides. So one is matter, but the other one is the energy. Now the term consciousness, how does it come into the picture? The Higgs and his team came to a conclusion that there is a particle. You can name it a God particle. And God particle, why? Because it's fundamental. Anything that you can think of. You think of a piece of coal, a God particle is there in this. A piece of iron, God particle is there in this. A cell from the body of an animal, God particle is there in this. A cell in the body of a human being, God particle is there as a fundamental particle in that as well. Flowing blood within, you find the God particle is also there as a particle in the corpuscles. Therefore, it's unified. And it's present in everywhere. But how do we recognize? A scientist came forward, David Bohm. Later on he had won the Nobel Prize. I'm going to quote three things from Nobel. David Bohm's, very famous, reference, wholeness and the implicate order. Bohm came to a conclusion after Albert Einstein, saying that, you see, the observer, the observed material, and the medium of observation. All these three should be aligned in the same level of consciousness. And he said, this is very important to understand in science. Those who don't understand the impact of consciousness in science, they don't see the wholeness. They can't see. Because the creation is a composition of the matter and the consciousness. Consciousness is not a product of the mind, but mind can touch upon the consciousness. Mind has got a material component where mind is connected with the organs of human system. So on one hand, the mind is connected with the consciousness. On the other, the mind is actually connected with the human biological system. So when there is a thought stored in the body, in the mind, in the brain of somebody, the thought is actually connected with the consciousness. There was a conversation between Lord of Truth, Yama, and Nachiketa, a young man, probably in the early teenage. Nachiketa had asked Yama, tell me about the intrinsic truth of being and becoming. Who am I? How do I understand who am I? Yama said, you are that embodiment of the Supreme. Yama went on explaining. Now he explained further. Look here, Nachiketa, this body of yours, consider your body as a chariot. And your body as a chariot, your life is getting moved forward, backward, here and there by virtue of your power of intellect, and mind is governing that. But you are ignorant to a factor that your chariot is being, occupied at one corner of it on its body of the chariot, the Supreme in the form of a minuscule representation of the Supreme Soul called Atman. And the Atman is not only a fragment of the Supreme, it's but the Supreme himself having embodied in an invisible, non-form, minuscule format, residing within the core of your heart. And yet described, Atmano rathinam vidhi shariram ratham eva tuhu buddhi tu sarathi vidhi manaha pragraham eva cha. So the meaning is, Nachiketa, know for certain that your body is like a chariot, and this chariot is carrying out the Supreme in the subtle body called Atman. And your mind is a connecting cord between this material world and the inner world. But you are being driven by your intellect. You are not being driven by the command of the Supreme Soul residing within. The moment you will be guided by the Supreme Soul within, the moment you are guided by the Atman who is present within, you become a cosmic entity. You become a universal entity. That's your universality. And it said that this is indestructible. This cannot be destroyed by fire. This cannot be washed up by water. This cannot be blown up by air. This cannot be cut apart. This is whole and whole in all conditions. Think about it. You do you concentrate your thoughts on that. Thoughts should lead to your realization. Let's see what is the, description by leading scientists about the thought. David Bohm is mentioning. Then there is a further question of what is the relationship of thinking to reality. As careful attention shows, thought itself is an actual process of movement. That is to say, one can see a sense of flow in the stream of consciousness, not similar to the sense of flow in the movement of matter in general. May not thought itself thus be a part of reality as a whole? Question. But there, what could it mean for one part of reality as a whole? But then, what could it be possible? Does the content of thought merely give us abstract and insignificant snapshots of reality? Or can it go further, somehow to group the very essence of living movement that we sense in actual experience? To meet the challenge before us, our notions of cosmology and the general nature of relativity must have room in them to permit a consistent account of consciousness. Vice versa, our notion of consciousness must have room in them to understand what it means for its content to be reality as a whole. The two sets of notions together should then be such as to allow for an understanding how reality and consciousness are related. So now we find the scientific thought is converging to thoughts of wholeness. The sage had described Yataho imani bhutani jayante yeno jatani jivanti yat prana pravishanti tad Brahman. What is a Brahman? Whatever you have found on this earth, in this creation, any material entity or any living entity, in any form, small, big, subtle, in any form, in the form of air, in the form of water, in the form of material, solid, in a composite form, in a hybrid form, in any form that you get, it's got a connection with the Supreme. It's a part of the Supreme. It's rather a revelation of the Supreme, and it can be understood through the consciousness that's built upon it. Some pseudo-scientists, they call themselves as scientists and mention the spiritual science is no science. Shame on them. They should really try to understand science, what science stands for. When they come to the scientific thought of the topmost minds of the scientific minds of the world, they will understand that the topmost scientific minds, the genius of the scientific minds, they could understand the presence of this wholeness within, and each one having a component, being a component of the wholeness. God the Supreme, Brahman the Supreme, is present in everyone. That's the fragment. I call it a chitkan. The elemental consciousness present in every elemental being. Elemental consciousness that's present in every human being, human person. And that can be nurtured and grown further to its fullness. Like a dormant flower, a lotus in the early morning, which is covered with a green cover, doesn't open it up, doesn't open up. The moment the sage comes and saying, Apabrinuhu, the sage gives a call saying, you rise, you open up. The solar touch, the rays of the sun, gives a soft touch to the green cover of the petals of lotus, and it blossoms and giving rise to the petals, 1,000 petals. The sages are saying that this is a Shastra. What is a Shastra? The consciousness at the primordial level in the Muladhara. The consciousness is in the form of the matter. It appears like a matter, but it's not just a matter. As David Bohm has discovered, your consciousness is what, it's their guiding force of your material content. You may be a material and consciousness put together, but you are considering yourself as just a matter and not a conscious driven matter. You be a conscious driven matter, that's a spirituality. You try to unfold the material content, that's the science. And you connect this to, you get the realistic science, the real Vedic science, the spiritual science, which says a component of that is matter, a component of that is consciousness, and a matter and the consciousness, this put together gives the wholeness in the universe. The cosmic system is whole. It's not a fragment, it's not a part, it's not any kind of element of that. It's an element. It's like, the fire giving rise to, small bundle of energy coming out of the fire. It's a, that's fire. Every fire, whether it's a large big, flame, it has got the quality of that, fire. It can burn, it can give heat, it can give light, it can exist until the material which it is burning is there. The sage is saying that Atamano Vidhi. You try to discover your own self and try to learn who you are. What is your identity? Your identity is not just this material identity, rather, your identity is the conscious identity. David Baum goes further and says, he's saying, he's discovering a point wherein this encryption, that's why, the Roger Penrose took it forward, and Roger Penrose was denied, like, Stephen Hawking was denied by the Nobel Committee, but then again, so many times of denial were there, but they could not, deny further. A person having attained above 90 years receiving Nobel Prize on the work that he did 40 years ago. Now Roger Penrose comes out like David Bohm, concluding on the art system. It's like a wave tunnel. It's a tunnel of the world. And the tunnel of the world is the flow of consciousness and energy. And the flow of consciousness and energy is there everywhere, touching all the lives together and the material contents together. And it's just, blossoming like a blossoming flower in the morning on the touch of the sun rays. It blossoms. The sage had said, you have your pranayama, you have your touch of the air. There are 5 different elemental, context of this air: pranavayu, apanavayu, samanavayu, vanavayu, uranovayu. What are those? Pranavayu is the air that you are pulling from outside down. It's coming within, and it's, vigorizing, you're vitalizing your own vital energy within. And then pranavayu does what? The consciousness which is stored there in the Muladhara, at the end of the coccyx, and then from there you find that nothing is there. Yes, it is there. It's full of energy. It's full of consciousness, and it's stimulated. And the moment the stimulation reaches there through your pranayama process, that you find this consciousness gets stimulated and it's arisen. It's arisen. Upanishad in the Upanishad sages that said, Uttishtito Jagrata Prapto Varana Nivodhato. This was quoted by Swami Vivekananda many times. This is mentioned by the sages of the Upanishad many times, also in the Upanishad. That was quoted by Swami Vivekananda also many times. What is that meaning? The meaning is you arise, you awake. What is the awakening? You awake on the presence of the consciousness within. You awake on that. You are not a bundle of energy. You are not just a bundle of matter. You are a composite of matter, energy, but then guided by consciousness. And that consciousness is an endowment of God, the Supreme. The Supreme is seated within as Atman. When you are taking a food, the food is actually rekindling your power of survival through energizing your vital. Aneno prana sanjayate. The sage is mentioning Anna Brahma. Aneno prana sanjayate. The food that you are taking is created by God. You might have done some cultivation on the field. You might have nurtured it, but entire conditioning and the background is all created. It's in a platter. You do some, work on that, you get the output. You add certain things, you get the output. And the output is always for the welfare of people, welfare of all the creations. But it's our own foolishness that we destroy that, our own ignorance, we destroy that. Nachiketa was advised by Yama saying, you identify the Shreya. Don't get driven and swayed by the prayer. The pleasurable things are there in life, so many. Don't get driven and swayed by these pleasurable things. Look at those things which are, sattva, truth oriented, centric to truth. Centric to God is centric to truth. And the moment you look within, the moment you discover or attempt to discover that goodness within, you'll find that God is residing within. যখন সেই প্রাণের যখন প্রেরণা আসবে, যখন অন্তর মাঝে দৃষ্টি চলে যাবে, তখন অন্তর মাঝে দৃষ্টি গেলে দেখা যাবে অন্তরে ভগবান বিদ্যমান হয়ে আছেন। হি ইজ প্রেজেন্ট ইনসাইড দি কেভ অফ ইয়োর হার্ট। সেই হৃদয় গুহার মধ্যে ভগবান রয়েছেন। কেমন ভাবে আছেন? না ক্ষুদ্র সেই একেবারে ইনভিজিবল একটা ক্ষুদ্র ক্ষুদ্র কণার মতো একটা আত্মার রূপে তিনি আছেন। হি ইজ প্রেজেন্ট দেয়ার ইন আ ভেরি ভেরি স্মল ইনফাইনাইট সিমিলারলি স্মল non-structured structure, invisible form, but having the content of full energy, total energy, complete consciousness. Once he is actually sensitized to grow in your life with your dedication, your love for God, your dedication for God, your devotion to God. How can we reach out to that? Is without any other consideration. That's known as, pure mind. When your mind is free from all considerations, including your personal considerations, and the mind is thoroughly devoted to God, and mind is thoroughly aligned to God, and mind is thoroughly dedicated to God, you get the consciousness revealed within. And the moment you find the consciousness revealed within, it unfolds. The moment it starts unfolding, you'll find the Brahman, the Kana Brahma. Kana Brahma is a Brahman in a small form. There's a consciousness of the divine. That the divine consciousness in a very small elemental form was there. Now it's becoming, it's growing, it's becoming bigger, 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 larger. And it's actually covering entire existence. And it's actually now in a position to offer the guidance to the entire existence. And you consider, you invoke it upon that supreme consciousness to be the king of your life, to be the guide of your life, to be the leader of your life, to be the wisdom provider of your life. We can call it in a more modern language, wisdom lead of your life, your Pragyapati, you can call it. So the moment the Pragyavan becomes Pragyapati, the person with your wisdom comes and guides and holds your hand forward, then you don't, step in a manner which is guided by ignorance. Your steppings become, fully guided by knowledge, the wisdom, and therefore you're proceeding forward the supreme consciousness, and you understand that it's a complete vast ocean of creation. God has made the entire thing happen to you. God has made the entire thing, dedicated to you, and God has made the things for you. I'll mention one thing. The sages had mentioned, one way to understand that. The sages, right from the Rig Vedas until the Atharva Veda end, I mentioned that you need to kindle, you need to energize the system within. You need to stimulate the system within. How? Concentrate your mind, to purify your mind. Your mind should be pure. Your mind should be focused on one single point, that's God. And then what do? You do the choice first. Then that's your nirbachan, choice. Then you do manan. Manan, you have in your mind cultivate it. Mind cultivates what? Mind cultivates the Spirit of God within. Now you proceed further. You need to create a habit. You need to create a habit of doing that. Avyas. You need to create a habit. And then in the avyas, you understand things, vibhuti also you get. You understand things happening to you. Sometimes you are perplexed. Sometimes you wonder, how come that this has happened to me? So much of good thing. You will find so much of good thing happens to you. And then finally you need to consecrate, dedicate yourself to the Spirit of God. Now, how to, have God in your mind always? Then sages advised that you have a Gayatri. Vishwamitra was a sage. Initially, he was a king of a particular region, and then also was doing some kind of meditation and was, grouped within the sages also. But he had a lot of arrogance, a lot of, ego, so much so that he had a, jealousy about the person who considered him as a friend, Vasisht. Jealousy about the Vasisht, because Vasisht was so much pious and he was indifferent to many other things. He did never ask for anything. He was indifferent to everything. And then Vishwamitra at one point of time came and attacked his hermitage and killed all 100 disciples present. They were killed by him. The power of spirituality, the power of meditation or Vasisht could sensitize Surabhi to offer nectar to them. And the Surabhi, in the form of a cow, had offered the nectar milk to them, and all of them got back to life. Even after having done this much of massacre, Vasisht was not, revengeful to Vishwamitra. Vishwamitra had to surrender to Vasisht because of certain reasons which I'm not going to mention now. He had failed in his objective of attaining things and control over the creation. So he came back to and fallen at the feet of Vasisht, saying that you take me as your disciple. And that's how Vasisht got him up. And the consciousness came into being of Vishwamitra. He came up with a, now he is a Brahmarshi Vishwamitra. This Brahmarshi Vishwamitra created a wonderful thing. Om, Om Bhuva Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyang Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhyo Yo Na Prachodayatu. This is the Gayatri. This is the fundamental of everything. Then Vasisht came forward and he said, this Om. Any aspirant of spiritual path, anybody in the creation of God who wants to get inside, dive inside and get an understanding, get an appointment with the inner being, You concentrate your mind, you make your mind cleansed first of the impurities, make the mind pure, and then have a concentration of mind, and then you have an instrument in your hand. You can now win. You can now win in your spiritual journey and get that consciousness of the divinity, divine consciousness unfolded before you. And that's what the sage says. Dhanuhu gritya upadishadam mahastram sharam hi upashi nasitam sanditaham ayamyo tadbhavagati no chetasya lakshyam tat eva aksharam saumo vidhi. I want to explain now. Pranamaha dhanuhu sharahi atmaha brahma tad lakshyam uchyatehe apramakten vidhuvyam sharavat tanmayaha bhavet. O the aspirant of divine way, O the aspirant of divine life, O the aspirant of true spirituality, you take up this Om as your instrument to move forward. You have this chanting of Om always in your pure mind, conditions of pure mind, and the mind which is concentrated on, focused on the lotus feet of God. And then you do in your mind internally. You don't have to be loud. You do internally. Oh, 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 oh. You are now connected to the entire cosmic system. God's entire creation is basically a creation of consciousness. Matter is subservient to consciousness. Your consciousness is a guide to your matter. Your biological entity, this body, is your material content, and the consciousness is the lead of that full altogether. Now you have the totality. You discover your identity, who you are. Now you can understand. You are not just a material content. You are not just a material embodied personality. You are not just a material personality known in the world in your name and with your worldly identity. You are but a living embodiment of the divine. You are one face of the divine. You are one revelation of the divine. You are the divine. Sages had said in 4 stages, Pranyanang Brahma. When you understand the prajna, the wisdom of God, you realize God. Then the sage, moved further forward in some Veda and said, Tattvamasi, you and this entity, me, are the same. You give me that spirit that I can identify. Aham Brahmasmi, Yajurveda, the sages had said, consecrate, dedicate. When David Bohm came up with the wholeness and the implicate order, he started off with the thought and the consciousness. He said matter cannot be realized properly unless you have the consciousness supporting that. Matter in isolation doesn't have it's always matter and consciousness put together. What the boson elements and particles stand for? They don't have a matter content. They've got an energy. And the energy is in a peculiar form. They've got a kind of spin which is actually taking them straight forward to the wholeness. And that's what was given the name after Satyendranath Bosu, boson, Boson. The boson group of particles are a larger part of the hadrons. The hadrons are the composite of revealing the revelations of the world. And on the other side, the fermions are there where the solid material things and contents are there. You can measure, you can weigh it, you can see it's visible, it's tangible, it's, you can, it's visible, it's tangible, it's there, it's got a weight, it's got a mass. Boson, it doesn't have consciousness. How come that it has got a weight? How come that you measure that weight? How come that you can see that? How can you measure that? How come that you can see this, like, entire range of light can you see? You can't. Some range of the light you can see. Entire range of the sound can you hear? You can't. A part of this, entire, sound, range of sound waves you can only hear. Even the multiplied instruments can't hear the entire range. Even the multiplied instruments can't see the entire range of vision. Now we have so much of powerful, and nuclear process. Even then you cannot, you can go to a large extent, but not the entire. So the wholeness is there in the implicate order as Baum has visualized, correctly visualized, as a correct person who is taking forward from Einstein, and that too again in the beginning, profound, remarkably profound, remarkable, genius like Satyendranath Bose, via Einstein, via others, Roger Penrose, David Bohm, even in the middle, Stephen Hawking, and then finally what you get is the recognition. The scientists are saying, without consciousness, you don't have any existence. You have the consciousness. The consciousness is actually driving force. In this creation is the driving force. You sacrifice the, spiritual part of the consciousness and make it into a material consciousness. That's how the lives are being run in the world, and so much of discords, problems in the world. The moment the consciousness is run on the principle of the divine consciousness, then sages are said, Swangachudvang Sangvadudvang Sangbhumanamsi Janatam Deva Bhage Yatha Purve Sanjananaha Upasate Samanivo Akuti Samanaha Samani Mantro Susahasati. So this is the equality. The concept of equality is there in the concept of Brahman. Because it is the consciousness which is drawn and derived from him. It is his consciousness which is an endowment to our lives, to your life, to every life. Non-discriminatory in nature. It doesn't discriminate on any factor, any element, anything on the world. It is purely, absolutely non-discriminative in nature. And the consciousness which we understand as consciousness in our, that's what has been mentioned by, David Bohm also. He has mentioned about Kurt Lewis, the Gestalt theoretician. Gestalt theoretician, he tried to understand, like Zen philosophers and the Confucian, Lao Tse, from China. They also tried to understand the Brahman, the theory of Brahman, the presence of Brahman. They have done their lot. It's good. We have our respect and regard for them. Like Kurt Lewis, he wanted to have a Gestalt theory in psychology, wherein those who are into psychology, the students and teachers of psychology should be knowing that this Gestalt theory is a totality. Human system is a total psychological system. It's not that really. The Gestalt theory is a part of it. It did not discover the other component, the spiritual consciousness within the human being. The moment you get the spiritual consciousness in that, you get the whole. However, Kurt Lewis was actually, he had an endeavor to get into the larger basis of the consciousness, and he could discover that, and he could get it connected to the psychological thoughts and elements of that. And that's how science of psychology had some broad wheezing during the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, until 80s of the last century. So the point is, in our scientific thought, we have now the fundamental particle, but God particle. And overall, when we look at it, the way Nachiketa had an understanding, the way Satyakam, the other, young sage who had matured into the one of the greatest sages, Satyakam could understand the way Madhuchanda and Madhuchanda, the young sages, male and female, they could understand the way other sages, the seniors, the middle-aged, the juniors, they all understood the lady sages, large number during the Rig Vedas, Sam Vedas, Jujur Vedas, Atharva Vedas, large number of lady sages were there, and they all realized the Supreme Brahman through their own process of realization. And once that is done, then you understand that, the basis of and the fundamentals of the truth. Like in a CERN machine, they could prove the presence of the fundamental particle for just while nano, and micro. 9, 18 and micro 6, 24, 10 to the minus 24. They actually, it took 10 to the minus 21 second, part of a second. Such a small fragment of second, you get a particle, and then you say that it is there in reality. Nobody else in the world has seen that. Only those 40 people who were working on that. And you have to believe, because they have seen. Similarly, when the sages are mentioning that the God is there, they're mentioning this, the divine consciousness is there. They have realized that. They have internalized that. They have earned that experience in their life. This is not experimental. This is experiential. Anybody in the world, from any corner of the world, with any description of that person, follows the same method, cleanses the mind, gets detached from all the ego and shadoripu, focuses on, concentrates on God, tries to unfold the spirit within, and dedicates herself or himself to the Spirit of God, will have the realization of God. And the moment the realization comes in, the experiential model would reveal the fact of God, would reveal the fact of the presence of God in the consciousness, would reveal the fact of God having been present in your cave of the heart, would reveal the fact of God connected to you if you have dedicated to God always, in all situations. Who is the friend? He is the friend. Arjuna could realize that. Tamaksharang paramang veditavyang tvamasya vishwasya parang nidanam vetvashi vedancha parancha dhama tvaya tatang visham anantarupam tvamadideva purusha purana tamasya vishwasya parang nidhanam vetvashi vedancha parancha dhama tvaya tatang visham anantarupam. The Lord Supreme is the original. He is at the origin. He is always present, omnipresent. He is omniscient. He is invisible, yet visible. He is not in a form, he is never in matter, yet he is in matter. He is always into consciousness, and that consciousness carries the matter along. He is the universe. He is the cosmic system. Lord himself is the cosmic system. That's, Brahma Kana. So one is a God particle, and this is a Brahmakan, Chitkan. So the material particle and the God particle. Human self is a composite of this matter and the consciousness together. O the Supreme, I pray unto you to offer that divine spirit to them who are urging upon to have the divine consciousness in life. Yes. We'll now have the chanting once again, Vedic chanting. Please take part in, participate. Om Bhag me manasi pratisthita manaho me vachi pratisthita.
Om
Om
Bhagavata
Bhagvimanoshi
Manomevachi
Pratishtita
Pratishta
Maivachi Pratishtita
Vihi medhi
Avihi
Avihi
Avihi Medhi
Medhi
Vedasyamani saha Shrutang me ma prahasiha
Vedasya Manistaha
Vedashamanistaha
Sutang Me
Sutam
Mahasiha
Me Prahashiha
Aninoditena ahoratran sangdadami
Aneno
Anino
Adhityana
Horadam
Horatran Sambadami
Satyang Bodhiswami Satyang Bodhiswami
Ritam Vadishami Satyam Vadishami
Ramavatu Tadbhaktaramavatu
Mam Avatu Tadbhaktaram Avatu
Avatu Mama Avatu Bhaktaram Avatu Bhaktaram
Avatu
Avatu
Mam
Bhaktaram
Avatu
Avatu
Bhaktaram Avatu
Bhaktaram
Bhaktaram
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti
Om
Om
Shanti
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 Apayantu mamangani bhakranah chokshu
Om
Om Apayantu
Apayantu
Mamangani Pranatakshu
Pramatha balam indriyani cha sarvani
Sutramatha
Sutramataha Balamindriyani Cha Sharvani
Ang Brahma Upanishadam
Sarvam Brahma Upanishadam
Aham Brahma Nirakuriyat Mama Brahma Nirakaro
Maham Brahma Nirakuriyat Mama Brahma Nirakarot
Nirakarnamastu Nirakarnameastu
Aniramastu Aniramastu
Dharmaste Mohi Santu Te Mohi Santu
Dharmaste Mahi Santu Te Mahi Santu
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti
Om Purnamadaha Purnamidang Purnat Purnamudachyate
ॐ पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णम् उच्यते
पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेव अवशिष्यते
पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेव अवशिष्यते
शांति शांति शांति
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
सहनो अवतु सहनो भुनातु
ॐ शानवतु शानभुनक्तु
यं करवावहै
सह वीर्यं कर्वावहै
तेजस्विनाधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै
तेजस्विनो अधितमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै
शांति शांति शांति
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
शं मित्रः शं वरुणः शं नो भवति हरिओमः
ॐ शान्नमित्रः शाम्बरुणः शाम्नवति
इन्द्रः बृहस्पतिः शं नो विष्णुरुक्रमः
शाम्न इन्द्रः बृहस्पतिः शाम्न विष्णु गुरुक्रमः
ब्रह्मणे नमः देवायु
नमः ब्रह्मणे नमः देवाय
प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मसि
प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मयसि
त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि
त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि
सत्यं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि
रीतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि
मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु
माम् अवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु
मामवतु वक्तारम्
अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम्
शांति शांति शांति
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
ओम भद्रं कर्णेभिः देवा
भद्रं कर्णेभिः
भद्रं पश्येमाक्षवीर्यजोत्रः
भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजोत्रः
वै पुष्टुवांशतनूभिः
स्थिरयाङ्गैस्तनूभिः
वशीमोहितं यतायु
वशीमद्वित्तं यथायो
शांति शांति शांति
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
We should do now meditation for 2 minutes. Now meditation for 2 minutes. 2 minutes ध्यान देखो. Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma. We are now closing. আমরা আজকের মতো এখানে শেষ করছি। আগামী রবিবার ইন্ডিয়ান স্ট্যান্ডার্ড টাইম 5:30 আমরা আবার মিলিত হব। We shall meet and do this, divine life talk next Sunday, Indian Standard Time, 5:30. Meanwhile, wish you all the best. Wish you all the best. সবাই ভালো থাকুন। সবাইকে আগামী রবিবার 5:30 আমরা মিলিত হব। Thank you.